Today, our presenter is Margaret. You may have seen her before. She talks about some of the differences in her bilingual book, A Pillow Stuffed with Diamonds. I'll put it on the Spanish. Una almohada rellena con diamantes. Ilsa Picazo will be reading the Spanish translations. We never get tired of talking about our cultural differences. Why? Because they're an endless source of amusement, whether that culture is French, German, Italian, Chinese, or Mexican. Margaret is a poet, a musician, and of course a frequent moderator here in the Open Circles. Ilsa Picazo is a lakeside painter and writer. Please welcome Margaret.
Thank you, Tim, and good morning. It's great to see such a fine audience come out for talk poetry, which we're going to do today. Mostly talk interspersed with poems from the book. So our presentation this morning is based on my bilingual book, A Pillow Stuffed with Diamonds, or Una almohada rellena con diamantes. The topic is, as Jim said, the often amusing cultural differences that drive us crazy. At the same time, they really make us ponder. I'll give you an example, as though you need one. When my husband and I first came here to investigate retirement possibilities, we stayed at Hotel Real de Chapala. There we noticed that the bathroom towel hook was installed upside down, and thereby rendered totally useless. That may have been the first time we uttered the phrase that became our mantra, "This is Mexico, they have their own way of doing things, and it's not nice to tell them how." The installer either had no concept of how a hook is used, had never hung his hat on a nail, or he was playing a practical joke on us. You with your half full and half empty glasses can decide. At any rate, I must start with a few explanatory words about tanka, the 1,300-year-old Japanese poem form I use in my book and in this presentation. Tanka lacked most of the characteristics you were taught in school to expect from poetry. For example, they don't rhyme, they seldom use simile and metaphor, and they're untitled. My poems don't preach or philosophize, and they are a little ambiguous on purpose, leaving the meaning open to your interpretation. Tanka are spare of language, employ a linguistic shorthand that's impossible in Spanish, I'm sorry to say. They're snapshots of moments in time that capture the poet's emotional state and fleeting impressions. In form, tanka have 5 lines consisting of 31 or fewer syllables. The last 2 lines are the most important, for they contain some twist or irony. Presenting the tanka this morning in Spanish is my friend Ilsa Picazo. Wait, no, a Chilangan, a native of Mexico City. Those people think they are superior, and the more I know her, I believe that's right.
Claro que sí.
She claims to be both Aztec and of Hispanic descent. A true hija de la Malinche. See, the Aztec translator and mistress of Conquistador Cortez. Ilsa is a visual artist and a very fine writer of fiction. She recently authored a course on menopause, which is no fiction.
Good morning, buenos días, mi nombre es Ilsa Picazo y efectivamente para los mexicanos de provincia soy chilanga. Pero también me siento mexicana de todo el país y ya soy hija adoptada de Chapala. Mi amiga es muy buena amiga y por eso me echa tantas flores, pero realmente lo único que es cierto es que mi libro sobre menopausia no es ficción.
So, we'll begin. Did you drive into Mexico? Do you remember that you had a few things hidden in your car that you weren't supposed to bring in, but you thought you might just risk it because those things never should have been on the contraband list in the first place? You were sure you could never find them here. Who does not sweat the crossing of the border or going through customs at the airport? And in our lives, what's hidden in our baggage that may not pass inspection? How do we feel about someone, anyone, rummaging through our suitcase? When I do this, it's the poem. The poem begins with, some people could never tell the difference. Crossing this frontier, hearts pound and palms sweat. We dread we'll get the red light. Strangers will unlock our bags, rifle through our secrets.
Cruzando la frontera, los corazones palpitan, las palmas sudan, con temor a que nos toque la luz roja. Extraños nos abrirán las maletas, que esculcarán de nuestros secretos.
I find it interesting how in Spanish they say, nos toque la luz roja, or the red light touches us, instead of we get the red light. It means that randomly your turn comes up. Okay, so let's say we get in without being embarrassed, fined, or imprisoned. Nothing was even confiscated. No bribe was even hinted at. We can breathe a sigh of relief. And now we're in a cultural wonderland and must invent sense of what we see and hear. It can be hard work unless we know how to turn bewilderment into play. It also helps to be among the few who arrive here fluent in Spanish. I'm afraid this is falling off my ears. We're neighbors, but culturally very unlike one another. Why is that, I ask myself? Maybe the answer can be found partly in that pre-Hispanic ball game called pelota, or ulama, a kind of basketball played with the hips. Hips! In which a small hard rubber ball had to pass through a stone ring on the ball court wall. Those who lost the game were decapitated in a sacred ritual. Decapitation was such an honor. You might say it was a consolation prize for having lost, for the blood of the losers was believed to ensure a good maize crop. Some archaeologists maintain decapitation was the prize awarded the winners, but I have it from a reliable source that was not the case. Culture confusion? Don't know how the game is played? They come from people who scored baskets with their hips and not winning lost their heads.
Confundido culturalmente, ¿no sabes las reglas del juego? Los mexicanos descienden de padres que incestaron con la cadera y si no ganaron, perdieron la cabeza.
One of the first cultural differences I noticed was how they have more fun than gringos. Partying hard may go hand in hand with working hard. Who knows? United Nations labor statistics state that Mexico is the hardest working nation in the world. Whatever their many reasons, and they do have many, they celebrate from cradle to grave, till beyond the grave. And the entire nation must be going deaf in the process because it ain't considered fun in Mexico unless it's over 95 decibels, the threshold at which hearing loss begins. We're referring to the roving loudspeakers, cohetes, and music, among other things. Gringos often watch the partying wistfully from the sidelines, fingers firmly implanted in ears. Mexicanos know how to party with gusto. Gringos aren't sure whether it's bad breeding or something to aspire to.
Los mexicanos saben divertirse en serio. Los gringos no están seguros si es mala educación o algo que desear.
Mala educación is a polite way of saying bad manners. Back to the topic of how hard they work. When I was a child, we had a set of alabaster bookends that my parents had bought as a souvenir on their honeymoon to Mexico City in 1934. The carved bookends depicted seated peons taking a siesta, heads resting on knees, sombreros providing privacy, their backs supporting the books. This is the image that has come to be known as the agachado, or the one with the bent head. It is universally recognized as a symbol of Mexico, the land of perpetual siesta and mañana. How ironic that is, for it was originally designed as a tribute to the hardworking campesino. El agachado, hard-working campesino, lost in siesta, trapped in a sculptor's image as forever lazy.
El agachado, campesino trabajador, perdido en la siesta, atrapado para siempre como perezoso en la imagen de un escultor.
Do you ever want desperately to try out your Espanol, and so you eke out your well-rehearsed question to the vendor, something simple like ¿cuánto cuesta? Or ¿cuándo va a tenerlo? And they totally sabotage you by answering in their perfect English. Ilsa, why do you speak English to me when I speak Spanish to you? Though gringos abound, don't forget, se habla español aquí.
Margarita, ¿por qué me hablas en inglés cuando te hablo español? Aunque los gringos abundan, no olvides, aquí se habla español.
Así es. Of course, you see how this question, why do you speak English to me when I speak Spanish to you, works both ways. Sometimes Mexicans wonder how come we expect them to speak to us in English in their own country. The following complaint was uttered to me in anguish by my gardener who had just received that insulting question from his gringo employer. Raul the gardener, who speaks the language of flowers, kneels among the callas and asks why gringos expect him to speak only English.
Raúl el jardinero, que habla la lengua de las flores, se arrodilla entre los alcatraces y se pregunta por qué los gringos esperan que hable solo inglés.
Perhaps you'll accept that speaking the language in which you live is a courteous gesture, if not a necessity. You must be aware that Americans expect immigrants on their soil to speak English. And some states, for fear of having Spanish take over their daily commerce, have enacted laws declaring English the official language. The Mexicans are more gracious to us. They teach English in the schools and require many documents in both languages by law. They seem to enjoy being bilingual, and they see how it improves communication and good feeling and understanding, and of course, business. If you make the breakthrough, you will also experience these benefits. For example, let's say you like to get your shoes shined. Did you know you're participating in a social event, but only if you speak and understand Spanish? Only then can you learn all the village gossip because they're watching what's going on all the time. And the boleros take on world politics. It's so much more fun than just sitting there. The Mexican word for bootblack is bolero, which comes from the song and dance they used to do when they shined the shoes. Mexican boleros take it slow. Shine only an excuse to solve the world's problems, one shoe at a time.
Los boleros mexicanos se toman su tiempo. El brillo es tan solo una excusa para resolver los problemas del mundo, un zapato a la vez.
Though we may love them, and I really do, some of their habits can be downright irritating, like the mañana response. Getting upset doesn't help and may make matters worse. So you might as well just accept the Mexican golden rule. The golden rule. You must always be home for your repairman. And he must always be late or postponed till tomorrow.
La regla de oro. Siempre hay que esperar en casa al reparador. Y él siempre debe llegar tarde o posponerlo hasta mañana.
This always amused me that they don't have a generic word for repairman. Well, they say that's because we have a word for the fixer of every kind of repair. The carpintero, plomero, electricista, etc. In Mexico, where out of order is normal, and every house has something needing fixing, there's no word for repairman.
En México, donde lo descompuesto es normal y cada casa tiene cosas que no funcionan, no existe la palabra para el que arregla. Pero yo quiero aclararte, Margaret, que sí la tenemos y se llama el mil usos. I don't know if you have in English, but
Handyman, we would say, maybe, but they say mil usos. 1,000 uses for this one man. Now, I seem to write often about theft. And the truth is, I never thought much about it before I moved here. And it's amazing how much there is to say on this subject now. In my wallet, only as many pesos as I care to lose. Wanting their share, thief, beggar, and law enforcement officer.
en mi cartera llevo los pesos que estoy dispuesta a perder. Quieren su porción, ladrón, limosnero y oficial de la ley.
Now, some of us think that our houses are immune to theft if we just live in gated communities. And I suppose that might help, but it comes with a price because the gate that keeps them out keeps us in. Like scorpions, those beyond the pale will come to us over the wall.
La reja que los mantiene fuera, nos mantiene dentro. Como alacranes, aquellos más allá de los límites vendrán por encima del muro.
At a cocktail party, a friend proudly disclosed her strategy for sleeping soundly at night. Little did she guess she was giving me my title tonka. You have to be careful what you say around me. The gringa protests. She has no fear of a thief who comes in the night. But why does she sleep with a pillow stuffed with diamonds?
La gringa protesta que ella no teme al ladrón que por la noche viene. Pero, ¿por qué duerme sobre una almohada rellena de diamantes?
All the wedding rings at my house have disappeared. Mine from 2 previous husbands, plus that of my current husband, plus the ring I gave to him. He felt so lonely being the only ring-wearing member of the marriage that he stashed it in his shaving kit, where he fantasized it would be safe. We don't believe that buying new rings will improve the marriage, and it might just tempt the next maid or plumber. Your ring that's missing. Don't think of it as stolen. It has a new life now on someone else's finger. Like your love, it's traveled.
Tu anillo que ha desaparecido, no pienses en él como robado. Tiene una nueva vida en el dedo de otra, como tu amor ha viajado.
So many kinds of theft in so little time. Consider how painters here commonly copy another painter's work and sign their own name. They've perfected the theft of art as well as the art of theft. He sells his paintings at the Wednesday Tianguis. The one I purchased is far better, he boasts, than Rivera's original.
Él vende sus cuadros en el tianguis del miércoles. El que compre, se jacta, es mucho mejor que el original de Riviera.
Now what about us? At times honesty seems, well, too much of a challenge to practice here. After all, how can we get those things we need except on the black market? We're honest gringos, though our music, movies, software may be stolen. Well, we're no thieves. Our problem is we can't resist a bargain.
Somos gringos honestos, aunque nuestra música, películas y software puedan ser robadas. No somos ladrones. El problema es que no podemos resistir una ganga.
And what about you people?
Well, I think we have more or less the same problem. Pirates at work.
Enough on that unsavory subject. And on to those closely related topics of begging and mordida. Is it true that the beggar in the following tanka has her hair tinted at a beauty salon used by some of you? Do our beggars qualify for the job? Shouldn't they display some deformity, infirmity, or genuine poverty? Is it enough to be frail and elderly, or young and unwashed? Are there beggars in front of our grocery stores who may be begging for employers? Lastly, can they justify our peso simply by sitting on the hard sidewalk all day in an uncomfortable position comparable to the bed of nails in countries that demand more visible suffering of their beggars? Do you notice you never see a chair for the beggar? It's perhaps too dignified, too comfortable, might make us mistake the supplicant for a mere loafer. I must sound terribly uncharitable, but on the contrary, I give to everyone who extends a cup. Everyone. I have a bad case of gringo guilt, I guess. Now, Ilsa, tell us, how do Mexicans feel about their limosneros?
How do you feel? Well, some people give some money, but not all, because we know someday a better life than us.
Okay, this beggar doesn't beg. Her cup does all the asking. Her job is to smile. Tissue folded in the cup muffles the unseemly clink.
Esta mendiga no mendiga, solo su taza suplica. Su trabajo es sonreír. El papel al fondo de la taza amortigua el tintineo indecoroso.
I love the sound of that onomatopoetic tintineo. That's the word for clink. Ting, ting. By the way, the Spanish tanka translations were done by two native speakers, one of whom was Ruben Varela from Jocotepec, who read with me here a year ago in his mariachi suit. You happened to be here. Now, onto that other pocket picker, the professional in the snappy uniform with a badge on his breast. Everyone gets stopped sooner or later. The outcome is more propitious if you are a woman and your cleavage is showing and you can cry on demand. Because, and it's true, I mean, officer, not that I did that, but because officers unravel at the sight of cleavage and tears, right? Now, my friend had her own unique approach, and this really happened, and though it worked for her, I don't suggest you try it yourself. And definitely, don't attempt it if you are a man. For your offense, the kissing comp will offer a special way to pay. A smack, a peck, a pucker up. Mwah! The ladies, mordida.
Por su infracción, el policía que besa te ofrecerá una solución especial. Un pico, un beso o unos labios fruncidos. La mordida para damas.
When the stupid policeman asked her for a mordida, she gave it to him. She bit his pinche arm, leaning through her open window. True.
Cuando el pendejo policía le pidió una mordida, ella se la dio, mordió su pinche brazo, apoyado en la ventana de su auto.
I think most of you understand that the joke here is that mordida means both bribe and bite. So when the officer asked for a mordida, she bit his arm. Well, while we're on the subject of streets, did you ever wonder about the traffic lights on our carretera? First, we were told the lights burned out faster than they could be replaced. And then we realized the green was perpetually off. Through self-discovery, we figured out we should just keep going till nos toque la luz roja. Traffic lights installed. Our carretera is a gamble. You now take a chance when it's your turn to go. Only if the red light is working.
Los semáforos instalados hacen más divertida la carretera. Ellos nos hacen adivinar cuándo puedes avanzar, ya que solo funciona la luz roja.
Still on the subject of streets, we probably all had our bad thoughts about the calles empedradas, the true name for our streets with embedded stones. Those are not cobblestones or adoquines, which are manufactured pavers that have a smooth interlocking surface. What we have is best suited for our mountain terrain and torrential rainy seasons because the stones allow some of the rain to seep in as it rushes towards the lake. Also, they can easily and cheaply be repaired. Also, they are what in the States we call traffic calming devices. And that's preferable to topes. As a walker, however, I attest to their not being foot friendly, or for that matter, posture friendly. I walk a lot and I have to keep my head forward and eyes on the ground. Look up and I risk falling on my face, as some of you undoubtedly have. But when my neck is sore from supporting my head in that position, I focus on the empedrada aesthetic. Namely, how beautiful are these streets? How quaint and atmospheric. How the stones lend an air of authenticity and antiquity to the villages around the lake. Our streets are handcrafted artesanias. Hobbling through this pueblo on calles empedradas, feet torched with paint, I marvel how each stone was set by human hand.
Trastabillando sobre las calles empedradas del pueblo, los pies torcidos con dolor, me maravillo cómo cada piedra fue colocada a mano.
On the road again, I want to reveal to you the most important to know question on the Jalisco driver's license exam. It's considered so important it appears on all versions of the test. The question is, how many persons can legally ride in the back of a pickup truck? Whole families ride the bus. One burro, bike, or moto. But the pickup trucks, mass transit for all who can squeeze in the back with the tailgate down.
Familias enteras toman el autobús, el burro, la bici o la moto, pero la pick-up es el transporte público para todos, que caben atrás con el tailgate abajo.
The answer to the question is the number specified on the vehicle registration. Now, raise your hand if you've ever witnessed an overloaded pickup truck being stopped by a policeman. Now, changing the subject altogether, have you ever wondered how it must feel to be among the many Mexican boys gifted with the name Jesus? I don't think you ever hear that name outside of Latin America, not even in Spain. Mexican boys named Jesus have a heavy, cross to bear, for a name implies an obligation to live up to the namesake. Mama named him Jesus in hopes he'd be her savior, take care of Mama. That is why those named Jesus prefer to be known as Chuy.
Mamá le llamó Jesús, esperando que fuera su salvador y se hiciera cargo de mamá. Por eso aquellos de nombre Jesús prefieren que les llamen Chuy.
I had a muy simpático dancing teacher named Jesus, a superb dancer and teacher who told me in a rare moment of disclosure and with tears in his eyes how a wealthy attorney from Chicago had come to town and gone off with his wife and daughter, followed by an injunction against Jesus ever seeing his child again. We learn from Jesus, dancing teacher, the lost art of keeping the beat, moving with grace to music, ignoring a gaping wound.
Aprendemos de Jesús, maestro de baile, el arte perdido de mantener el ritmo, moviéndose con gracia con la música, ignorando la herida abierta.
There's so much to say about horses. They play a central role in the charreadas, parades, and transportation. I often watch horses grazing on a patch of dusty roadside across from Walmart. One night as I was walking in the village, I was startled by a tremendous clatter on the stones. It was a galloping horse and a rider with an unlikely package in his arms. The horse's day is long, tethered roadside, grazing, breathing fumes. At day's end, he gallops home, infant asleep in his rider's arms.
El día del caballo es largo, atado al lado de la carretera, pastando, inhalando humo. Al final del día galopa a casa con el bebé dormido en brazos del jinete.
If you haven't been to a charreada, you should make a point to do so. But bring earplugs, a stadium cushion, a picnic, and something to do between events. The Mexicans eat, drink, socialize, and watch soccer matches over a neighboring wall. The charreada is a series of competitions among charros, or cowboys, featuring practical ranch skills, such as roping, riding bulls, and making a running horse stop on a dime and chase his tail in circles in both directions. They also make their horses dance like Michael Flatley of Riverdance, so that eventually the poor things will require knee replacement surgery. The entrance to the lienzo, or bull ring, where the competition is held, is off Revolucion, the Tianguis Street. One of the crowd pleasers in the charreada is the formation riders in long skirts who demonstrate amazing equestrian skills at breakneck speed. Generically, these young girls are called Adelitas after the women who fought alongside their men during the Mexican Revolution. The term Adelita has since come to signify a woman of strength and courage. And oh, did I mention the Adelitas ride side saddle, or as they say here, like Amazons, a la Amazona. The Adelitas of the charro ride side saddle, lest they discover too soon the pleasures of straddling a galloping steed.
Las adelitas de la charreada montan a la amazona para que no descubran demasiado pronto los placeres de montar a horcajadas un caballo galopante.
The bulls at the charreada I attended were not at all interested in trying to throw off the cowboys. But the one bull who really got into it sent his rider out of the ring on a stretcher. The Ferdinand in the tanka I'm about to read refers to the little bull in Munro Leaf's popular children's book of 1936, who referred to smell the flowers that respond to provocations in the bull ring. The story also became a Disney film. In our village, charreada, many Ferdinands, bulls ignore the taunts of red handkerchiefs, glom onto the exit gate.
En la charreada de nuestro pueblito hay muchos Fernandos. Los toros ignoran las mofas de los pañuelos rojos, merodeando a la puerta de la salida.
Of course, preparing the horses for such events involves getting them fitted out with new shoes. This is the job of the village farrier or blacksmith on Donato Guerra. You can watch him shoe horses right on the street. Did you ever watch that?
No way. I am from a city.
See, what did I tell you?
Yo también soy de la ciudad. Y allí teníamos
Horse and
también.
farriers share an exchange of trust. The horse gives his hoof to be pried, hammered, nailed, while secured in the farrier's crotch.
Caballo y herrador comparten un intercambio de confianza. El caballo da la pezuña para ser arrancada, martillada y clavada, mientras es sostenida en la entrepierna del herrador.
The Spanish word for crotch is entre, between pierna, between the legs. I'd like to shift now to the topic of death. Unlike most people in the US and maybe Canada, Mexicans accept it as inevitable, but maybe not those people from Mexico City, I don't know.
Of course, we accept it in the same way. We are superior, remember?
They see it all around them, and maybe that helps because it doesn't happen as maybe often in the hospital. It's just no secret. And for those lucky souls who perish on the highways, the highway department grants free perpetual care roadside memorials. You're supposed to laugh. Lining our roads, shrines to young martyrs who sacrificed all to trees, cliffs, and ditches in the name of speed and tequila.
A lo largo de nuestras carreteras hay cruces para mártires jóvenes que hicieron el sacrificio supremo ante los árboles, acantilado y las zanjas, en nombre de la velocidad y el tequila.
But all of you know that death is not only not feared, it is personified and celebrated in the form of the fashionable calavera, or skeleton Catrina, created and popularized in the early 20th century by engraver Jose Guadalupe Posada, who used well-dressed skeletons to satirize the upper classes during the reign of Porfirio Diaz. Catrina means literally a well-dressed woman. A Catrine is her masculine counterpart, words implying snobbery. Originally, those skeletons had political implications, but their meaning has changed. The Catrina doll, usually with a wide-brimmed hat and an umbrella to shield her from harmful rays of the sun, is all over the place. And if you own one, you are declaring, you aren't afraid of death. You've joined the celebration. And Diane Pearl sells a lot of beautiful ones. Ilsa has pointed out to me that Catrina is far more popular with gringos than with Mexicans. It's like we just discovered it. Catrina is a serious joke, in my opinion. In the Middle Ages, they called such reminders memento mori, and they weren't the least bit funny. They prompted people to live impeccable lives so they could avoid eternal flames. Faust, for example, is always portrayed with a skull on his desk. I see Catrina as a reminder of the inevitable, but without moral implications or the fear factor. We would call her a kind of nose-thumbing memento mori. Dear me, Catrina, are you smart or simply vain? You've set the style with your fancy frills and hats, and we are soon to follow.
Ay de mí, Catrina, ¿eres sabia o fanfarrona? Has creado la moda con tus sombreros y ropa fina, y estamos prontos a seguirte.
I'm going to skip to this part because we're running out of time. The Mexican attitude made me look at death differently. In moving here, we discarded a lot of useless baggage, and fear of death was one of them. I mean, if you accept that you're going to die, you might as well do it in a death-friendly place like Mexico. I like that the necro-bureaucracy here is relatively innocuous if you do some planning, and death is really a bargain compared to where we came from. So I recommend that you do as we did and fill out a few forms and file them at LCS. Go about your daily business and leave the cleaning up later to LCS and your heirs. Filling out our final wishes papers. We check cremation as though making a selection from a sushi menu.
Llenando la lista de nuestros últimos deseos, checamos incineración como quien selecciona de un menú de sushi.
Now we'll conclude with a few observations on Aztec history and those ever-lovable, bloodthirsty deities of theirs with unpronounceable names. Most of you know the sad story of the conquest, attributable in large part to the world's most disastrous case of mistaken identity, when the Aztec leader Moctezuma welcomed Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés with open arms, thinking he was the returning plumed serpent god Quetzalcoatl. It was the second coming that today's Christians should learn from. You see, Cortés looked like the returning god on the outside, light-skinned and bearded. They hadn't seen one to fit that description among themselves, so they just presumed it had to be the returning prophesied God. People, you can't be too careful in screening your second comers. I suggest you get yourselves ahead of time some infallible proofs so you can protect yourselves against imposters and pretenders, not to mention all manner of riffraff and false prophets. Ironically, the first of the second comers may just be Hernan Cortez, who's trying to sneak back in by running for governor of Jalisco. I'm not kidding, in the coming election. One can't distinguish the god from the conqueror. Ask Montezuma, Quetzalcoatl, and Cortez, expats with beards from afar.
No se puede distinguir al dios del vencedor. Pregúntale a Moctezuma, Quetzalcóatl y Cortés, forasteros de tierras lejanas con barba.
Legend has it that when Quetzalcoatl does return, he will emerge dripping wet from Lake Chapala. You can see this depicted on the mural at the end of the Chapala Pier. She says,
Well, Quetzalcóatl can born here in Chapala, also Puebla, Zacatecas, Durango, Mexico City, por supuesto. Of course, was the origin.
so there you are. Everybody thinks she's going to come back in their hometown. Will he come again? Pale-faced Quetzalcoatl? Many are fishing from the Lake Chapala Pier, known as Rinconcito de Amor.
Regresará el pálido Quetzalcóatl. Muchos están pescando desde el muelle de Chapala, nombrado el Rinconcito de Amor.
You've undoubtedly seen the sign above the Chapala Pier, Rinconcito de Amor, or Little Corner of Love. It comes from a song by Vicente Fernandez, whose statue is on the Chapala Guadalajara Highway, a few meters south of Soriana. Here are lines from the last of several stanzas. Chapala, little corner of love, where souls can speak about you with God.
Chapala, rinconcito de amor, donde las almas pueden hablarse de tú con Dios.
Well, I'm afraid we have to skip to the end because the bells are chiming. And now, our closing tanka. A question that every immigrant must ask, namely, to what extent can I become assimilated into my new country? Or must I forever be regarded as an outsider on foreign soil? Huitzilopochtli was the head honcho of the gods, sun, war, patron of her hometown, Tenochtitlan, which became Mexico City, all the important stuff. He wasn't the kind of god you could cuddle up to. More human sacrifice was done to him than to any other god. But I figure if you need to ask the immigrants question to someone, don't go to Inmigración, where you get your FM3. Go straight to Huitzilopochtli, who is credited with bringing the first Aztecs across the border from way up north to settle in this glorious place. Will this be my home, or will I always be gringa? My heart is open on Huitzilopochtli's platter. What more is there to give?
¿Será este mi hogar o seré siempre gringa? Mi corazón está abierto en el platón de Huitzilopochtli. ¿Qué más puedo dar?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll take time for a couple of quick questions and then we will adjourn. So does anybody, if you'd raise your hand and have a quick question, Margarita. If you just hold on for 2 minutes.
As a Mexican who has been looked upon by the Mexicans as a gringa, what do I do as Huitzilopochtli? ¿Qué hace uno cuando uno es considerada gringa y es uno mexicana de nacimiento y de corazón?
Se les dice Yo soy mexicana y gringa. Y Huitzilopochtli me blessing de las dos partes.
Well, I'm here to stay, sure.
Okay,
I don't think that this, okay.
People are,
If there are questions, sure.
okay, one
Give
more.
us a try.
It is.
Gracias, gracias. Margaret, felicitaciones, mis amigas Ilsa y Margaret, felicidades. Espero que con esto que Margaret acaba de mencionar acerca de esta apicultura que tenemos en este lugar, entendamos que somos mexicanos y que somos extranjeros también, pero vivimos en un lugar que Dios nos puso para ambas culturas. ¿Sí? Ustedes, sí, ustedes tienen los dólares, nosotros tenemos el lugar.
So God has put us here together to share both cultures.
Thank you very much. If you have further questions and would like to, Margaret will be here. Ilsa will be here for a bit. So I would just like to tell you about next week's presenter and the topic. It's David Bryan, and he's a professional therapist moving here from Oregon. He pursues an exploration of consciousness through his music, his poetry, his writing, and his teaching. He always defends our access to our inner life. And his topic is on fear and diminishing fear's power. Fear constricts our attention and disconnects us from the deep resources of the soul. David will address these issues and more, and he will explain the internal skills that, when developed, strengthen the muscles of awareness and attention that allow us to diminish fear's power and to come into a more satisfying relationship with fear in our world. So be sure to come next week. Remember to turn your cell phones back on, pick up your coffee cups and stack the chairs by color and style. Thanks for coming. See you next Sunday.
I like that, but I don't have to